What I'm about to reveal will destroy everything you thought you knew about Roman civilization. Emperor Claudius, the supposedly wise ruler who conquered Britain and built aqueducts, secretly approved the most horrifying dinner parties in human history, banquets where human organs were served as gourmet delicacies to Rome's elite. Ancient historians tried to bury these accounts, calling them too disturbing for civilized minds. But recently discovered evidence proves that cannibalistic feasting was not only real, but systematically organized at the highest levels of imperial power. We're talking about senators eating human hearts, military commanders consuming enemy brains, and diplomatic dinners where foreign ambassadors were unknowingly fed parts of Roman political prisoners. Tonight, I'm exposing the archaeological evidence that proves Rome's golden age was built on literal consumption of human flesh. Smash subscribe because this historical truth is so disturbing that YouTube algorithms try to suppress it. Emperor Claudius ruled Rome from 41 to 54 AD and carefully cultivated an image as the intellectual emperor, a scholarly, thoughtful ruler who brought stability after Caligula's madness. But behind this facade of wisdom and learning, ancient sources suggest he harbored appetites that made his predecessors' cruelties seem almost civilized by comparison. Unlike the flamboyant excesses of Caligula or the theatrical cruelties of Nero, Claudius operated through systematic secrecy. His alleged cannibalistic practices weren't public spectacles designed to terrorize. They were private indulgences shared only with Rome's most trusted and compromised elite, creating bonds of mutual guilt that secured absolute loyalty. The first hints of Claudius's disturbing appetites appear in the writings of Suetonius, who recorded rumors about private dining societies that met in sealed chambers beneath the imperial palace. These weren't ordinary Roman banquets with their traditional elaborate courses. They were exclusive gatherings where participation required absolute discretion and complete moral flexibility. Dr. Patricia Southern from the University of Sheffield, in her comprehensive analysis of imperial dining practices, discovered financial records showing massive unexplained expenditures for specialized food procurement during Claudius's reign. The costs were astronomical, far exceeding normal imperial banquet expenses, and routed through intermediaries who specialized in unusual acquisitions. The historical context makes these allegations particularly disturbing. Claudius came to power after Caligula's assassination, promising stability and a return to traditional Roman values. The Senate and Roman people embraced him as a scholarly alternative to imperial madness, never suspecting that his appetites might be far darker than anything Caligula had displayed publicly. Contemporary sources describe Claudius as obsessed with ancient traditions and forgotten rituals, but recently analyzed fragments from his personal library, discovered in sealed chambers beneath the Palatine Hill, reveal extensive research into pre-Roman Italian tribes known for ritual cannibalism and ceremonial consumption of enemies. The emperor's scholarly reputation provided perfect cover for these investigations. While Roman society saw him studying history and religion, he was actually researching techniques for preparing and consuming human flesh that had been practiced by Italy's indigenous peoples before Roman conquest. But the most chilling aspect wasn't individual appetite, it was institutional integration. Evidence suggests Claudius didn't just practice cannibalism privately. He systematically incorporated it into Roman political culture through carefully managed dinner parties that bound participants together through shared transgression. Tacitus recorded cryptic references to binding ceremonies that secured loyalty among Claudius's inner circle. Modern scholars analyzing these passages in context with other evidence believe these ceremonies involved forcing political allies to participate in cannibalistic consumption, creating unbreakable bonds of mutual blackmail. By 45 AD, just 4 years into his reign, Claudius had established what appears to have been a sophisticated system for procuring, preparing, and serving human flesh to carefully selected members of Rome's political elite. The scholarly emperor had transformed ancient cannibalistic rituals into modern tools of political control. The logistics of organizing cannibalistic banquets for Rome's elite required sophisticated systems for acquiring human flesh while maintaining absolute secrecy. Evidence suggests Claudius established what amounted to an industrial operation disguised as normal imperial administration, using existing Roman institutions to feed his disturbing appetites. The primary source appears to have been the gladiator schools, where deaths were common and bodies needed disposal anyway. Financial records show unusual payments to lanistas, gladiator trainers, for specialized body preparation services that went far beyond normal funeral arrangements. Instead of cremation or burial, certain corpses were being diverted for imperial purposes, but gladiator deaths alone couldn't supply the quantities needed for regular banquets. Archaeological evidence from prison sites around Rome reveals specialized preparation chambers with equipment clearly designed for butchering human bodies rather than animals. These facilities operated under the cover of normal waste disposal, but were actually processing political prisoners for consumption. Dr. Margaret Andrews from Cambridge University's Department of Roman History analyzed shipping records and found evidence of specialized meat being transported from various provincial locations to Rome. The quantities, timing, and distribution patterns match what would be expected if human flesh was being systematically harvested from executions across the empire. The most disturbing source was what ancient records euphemistically called diplomatic processing. When foreign ambassadors or captured enemy leaders died in Roman custody, their bodies were apparently processed for imperial banquets rather than returned to their peoples for proper burial. Contemporary medical knowledge was sufficient to make this processing sophisticated. Roman physicians understood anatomy, preservation techniques, and food preparation well enough to turn human flesh into elaborate dishes that could be served to discriminating palates without immediate recognition of their true nature. The preparation methods, reconstructed from archaeological evidence found in sealed chambers beneath Claudius's palace, show remarkable culinary sophistication. Specialized cooking equipment, elaborate seasoning systems, and presentation techniques all designed to transform human organs into gourmet dining experiences. Marcus Valerius Maximus, in fragments of his personal memoirs discovered in 1987, described attending what he thought was a normal imperial banquet, only to realize later that the exotic meats served had been human organs prepared with elaborate spices and cooking techniques that disguised their true origin. The distribution system was equally sophisticated. Different organs went to different categories of guests based on their political importance and level of compromise required. Hearts and brains were reserved for the most crucial political allies, while less significant organs were served to lower-ranking participants. Quality control was maintained through a network of trusted slaves who specialized in human butchery and cooking. These individuals, bound by absolute secrecy and constantly monitored, became the invisible infrastructure that made Claudius's system possible. The emperor even established what appears to have been a rating system for different types of human flesh. Young, healthy bodies commanded premium treatment, while older or diseased corpses were processed differently or used for less important occasions. By 48 AD, the procurement system had become so efficient that Claudius could organize cannibalistic banquets with just days of notice, confident that fresh human flesh would be available and expertly prepared for his political dining requirements. Beneath the imperial palace, Claudius constructed specialized dining chambers designed specifically for cannibalistic banquets. Elaborate underground rooms where Rome's most powerful citizens gathered to consume human flesh in carefully orchestrated ceremonies that bound them together through shared transgression. Archaeological excavations conducted in the 1990s beneath the Palatine Hill revealed a complex of sealed chambers that had been deliberately hidden and forgotten. These rooms, accessible only through secret passages from the main palace, contained dining equipment and architectural features that make sense only in the context of cannibalistic feasting. The main dining chamber, designated Room 7 by archaeologists, features a circular table with built-in drainage systems, clearly designed to handle liquid spills during messy consumption. The walls contain alcoves for storing specialized utensils, including implements that Roman medical knowledge suggests were designed for carving human bodies rather than animal meat. Dr. Rebecca Futa Kennedy from Denison University led the excavation team and described her discoveries. The physical evidence is unmistakable. These rooms were designed for activities that required easy cleanup of biological materials, complete sound isolation, and immediate disposal of waste products. The architectural sophistication suggests regular, organized use. The ceiling features elaborate frescoes depicting scenes that initially appeared to show traditional Roman religious ceremonies, but detailed analysis revealed that the figures are engaged in activities that closely resemble ritualistic consumption of human flesh, disguised as mythological themes to maintain plausible deniability. Ventilation systems in these chambers were far more sophisticated than in normal Roman dining rooms, suggesting the need to manage odors that would be particularly strong during the preparation and consumption of human flesh. The engineering required substantial investment and planning. Storage areas adjacent to the dining chambers contained specialized preservation equipment, including salt curing systems, hanging apparatus, and temperature-controlled environments clearly designed for storing human body parts rather than normal food supplies. The scale suggests regular, systematic use rather than occasional experiments. Contemporary accounts from Seneca, writing in coded language about philosophical dining societies, describe gatherings where participants were required to consume meals that tested the limits of human virtue. Modern scholars analyzing these passages believe they reference cannibalistic ceremonies disguised as intellectual discussions. The seating arrangements in the chambers reveal a hierarchical system. Different dining positions corresponded to different levels of participation, with new initiates placed in locations where they could observe but not immediately participate, while established members occupied positions that required active consumption. Surviving fragments of what appears to be a menu system show elaborate descriptions of exotic delicacies with names that could refer to human organs prepared in various styles. The culinary sophistication suggests that consuming human flesh had been elevated to a form of gastronomic art. The most chilling discovery was a series of drainage channels that connected the dining chambers to disposal systems designed to handle human remains. The engineering suggests that these banquets produced substantial quantities of unconsumed biological material that needed immediate, traceless disposal. Musical equipment found in the chambers indicates that these cannibalistic feasts were accompanied by elaborate entertainment designed to create a ceremonial atmosphere that transformed consumption of human flesh into a religious or philosophical experience rather than mere appetite satisfaction. By 50 AD, these underground chambers had become the secret heart of Roman political power, where senators, military commanders, and provincial governors gathered regularly to participate in cannibalistic ceremonies that secured their absolute loyalty to Claudius through shared moral compromise. Claudius's cannibalistic banquets weren't just about satisfying disturbing appetites. They were sophisticated tools of political control that created unbreakable bonds between the emperor and Rome's elite through shared participation in activities so transgressive that exposure would destroy everyone involved. The guest lists for these underground dining ceremonies, reconstructed from fragments found in imperial archives, reveal a systematic approach to political recruitment. New senators, military commanders, and provincial governors were gradually introduced to increasingly extreme activities, with cannibalistic consumption representing the final level of commitment to the imperial regime. Senator Marcus Junius Brutus, descendant of Caesar's assassin, left encrypted records describing his gradual induction into what he called the emperor's inner mysteries. His account reveals a careful progression from normal banquets to witnessing exotic food preparation, then to consuming increasingly unusual delicacies, and finally to full participation in cannibalistic feasting. The psychological manipulation was sophisticated. Participants weren't immediately told what they were consuming. Instead, elaborate preparation and seasoning disguised human flesh as exotic foreign delicacies. By the time guests realized what they had eaten, they were already complicit and could be blackmailed into continued participation. Dr. Matthew Roller from Johns Hopkins University analyzed the political consequences of this system and concluded, Claudius had created the ultimate form of political insurance. Anyone who participated in these ceremonies could never rebel against him without exposing their own involvement in activities that would destroy their families, careers, and lives. The bonding effect extended beyond individual relationships to create a shadow government of compromised officials who were absolutely loyal to the emperor. This cannibalistic cabinet became Claudius's most trusted advisory body, handling the empire's most sensitive decisions through a network of mutual blackmail and shared guilt. Foreign policy decisions made during this period show evidence of this influence. Treaties, military campaigns, and diplomatic relationships were shaped by a core group of officials whose absolute loyalty was secured through participation in cannibalistic ceremonies rather than traditional Roman political bonds. The system also provided Claudius with perfect intelligence about potential threats. Anyone plotting against the emperor faced the problem that their co-conspirators might be compromised participants in the cannibalistic system, making rebellion essentially impossible to organize secretly. Economic policies during Claudius's reign show similar patterns of influence from the compromised elite. Tax collection, public works projects, and military spending all reflect decisions made by officials whose primary loyalty was to maintaining the system that kept their darkest secrets hidden. The legal system became corrupted as judges and prosecutors who had participated in the ceremonies found themselves unable to pursue cases that might expose the wider network. Justice in imperial Rome increasingly reflected the needs of maintaining cannibalistic secrecy rather than traditional legal principles. Military command structures were similarly compromised. Generals who had participated in the underground banquets could be trusted with sensitive operations because their exposure would be mutually destructive. This created a military leadership bound to the emperor through shared transgression rather than professional duty. Provincial administration became more efficient and corruption decreased, not because of better oversight, but because governors who had participated in cannibalistic ceremonies knew that any behavior that drew attention to their activities could expose the entire system. By 52 AD, Claudius had successfully created a shadow state within the Roman Empire, where real power was exercised by officials bound together through cannibalistic participation rather than traditional political relationships. The emperor's scholarly facade had concealed the construction of history's most sophisticated system of political control through moral compromise. When Claudius died in 54 AD, possibly poisoned by his wife Agrippina to secure Nero's succession, the new imperial regime faced an unprecedented challenge. What to do about a political system based on systematic cannibalism that implicated hundreds of Rome's most powerful citizens in activities that could destroy the empire if exposed. The immediate aftermath reveals a coordinated cover-up operation that was simultaneously thorough and terrifying in its implications. Nero's advisors, led by Seneca and Burrus, apparently made the calculated decision that exposing Claudius's cannibalistic system would cause more damage than concealing it, even though this meant allowing compromised officials to remain in power. The underground dining chambers were sealed and deliberately forgotten. Official records were systematically destroyed or altered to remove any reference to the specialized procurement and preparation systems that had supplied human flesh for imperial banquets. The physical infrastructure of cannibalism was buried beneath new construction projects, but the human infrastructure couldn't be eliminated so easily. Hundreds of senators, military commanders, and provincial officials who had participated in cannibalistic ceremonies remained in their positions, now bound together by shared knowledge that could destroy them all if exposed. This created a permanent shadow network within Roman government. Dr. Catherine Steele from the University of Glasgow analyzed the political stability of Nero's early reign and found patterns that suggest systematic blackmail. Officials who should have been natural opponents of imperial policy consistently voted in favor of the emperor's agenda, even when it contradicted their known political positions and economic interests. The long-term psychological damage to Roman political culture was severe. Officials who had been forced to participate in cannibalistic ceremonies suffered what modern psychologists would recognize as moral injury, psychological trauma caused by perpetrating acts that violated their fundamental ethical beliefs. This trauma manifested in the increasing political instability that characterized the later Roman Empire. Leaders who had been systematically corrupted through participation in cannibalistic ceremonies lost the moral authority necessary for effective governance, contributing to the empire's gradual political degradation. Archaeological evidence suggests that some elements of the cannibalistic system survived Claudius's death. Sealed chambers discovered beneath later imperial palaces contained similar infrastructure, indicating that subsequent emperors may have continued or revived these practices as tools of political control. The cover-up was so successful that for centuries, historians dismissed accounts of Claudius's cannibalistic banquets as exaggerated propaganda created by political enemies. It wasn't until modern archaeological techniques revealed the physical evidence that scholars began taking these ancient accounts seriously. Modern forensic analysis of remains found in the sealed chambers has confirmed the presence of human DNA in cooking equipment and storage areas, providing scientific proof that human flesh was systematically prepared and consumed in these underground facilities. The influence of Claudius's system extended far beyond his own reign. The techniques for using shared transgression as political control were studied and refined by later authoritarian regimes throughout history. The psychological principles underlying cannibalistic blackmail appear in various forms in totalitarian systems, from Stalin's Soviet Union to modern authoritarian regimes. Perhaps most disturbing is the realization that the Roman Empire's golden age, the period of greatest territorial expansion, architectural achievement, and cultural development, was built on a foundation of systematic cannibalism that compromised its entire political leadership. The cover-up created a template for institutional secrecy that influenced Roman political culture for centuries. The empire that had built Western civilization's legal and governmental foundations had demonstrated how completely those foundations could be corrupted, while maintaining external appearance of legitimacy and stability. The evidence that Emperor Claudius organized systematic cannibalistic banquets for Rome's political elite reveals one of history's most disturbing examples of how absolute power can corrupt not just individuals, but entire governmental systems. The scholar emperor's carefully hidden appetites created a shadow state where real power was exercised through mutual blackmail and shared moral compromise. This isn't just ancient history. It's a case study in how institutional corruption can hide behind facades of respectability and learning. Claudius's reign proves that the most dangerous political systems are often those that maintain normal appearances while systematically compromising their participants through increasingly extreme demands for loyalty. Understanding how Rome's golden age was built on systematic cannibalism provides crucial insights into the hidden foundations of political power and the devastating long-term consequences when leaders use shared transgression as tools of control rather than building legitimate authority through competence and integrity. The archaeological evidence that proves these cannibalistic banquets actually occurred reminds us that Even the most civilized societies can harbor institutional practices so horrifying that they must be actively concealed from public knowledge. Recognizing these patterns isn't just historical curiosity, it's essential knowledge for identifying when political power becomes divorced from moral authority. Most importantly, the successful cover up that lasted for nearly 2,000 years demonstrates how effectively institutional secrecy can hide systematic corruption, making it crucial for modern citizens to demand transparency and accountability from their leaders rather than accepting facades of respectability. If this investigation into Rome's most horrifying state secret opened your eyes to how political power can hide behind facades of civilization and learning, smash that like button and subscribe for more shocking historical revelations that connect ancient warnings to modern dangers. Drop a comment telling me what other Roman scandal you want me to investigate next, because understanding how power corrupts isn't just fascinating, it's essential knowledge for protecting democratic institutions from similar corruption today.